Hello everyone, welcome to Kells in County Meath. Now this church is incredibly important because it was where a masterpiece of Irish art was housed for centuries, the Book of Kells. The Book of Kells, it wasn't actually written here. It was written in Iona, which was a Scottish monastery that was founded by Columkill. Now, Iona began to be attacked by Vikings and it wasn't safe for the book and the monks to remain there, so they brought all their treasures to Kells. Kells was also a church that was associated with Columkill. The land for Kells was actually given to Columkill by his cousin, the King of Argyll. When Columkill first arrived here and said, "I'm going to build a church," the people thought he was mad and they jeered him. It was only when they realised who he was and his cousin arrived, the king was absolutely furious that they had been so mean to Columkill, and he granted him all the land in Kells. The Book of Kells would have actually been housed here for centuries, right up until when Cromwell's soldiers were stationed near the town, and in the town, I believe, in the barracks. It was unsafe to have relics around Oliver Cromwell. He had a tendency to destroy what he believed was idols, but were actually very important emblems of faith. So anything that he could destroy was moved to safety. So the Book of Kells would have been moved to Trinity College, where it's now housed, and there's a new display there, so definitely check it out. But for a long time, this was a home of a true masterpiece. But the Book of Kells wasn't the only masterpiece. As we look around, you're going to see these stunning carved high crosses that tell the story of the Bible and the monks from around here. It's an amazing place. And here is another breathtaking cross. Again, this is not the one that everybody talks about. This is just another fantastically decorated cross, and I'll be going through some of the Bible stories that it tells. A very interesting part of this cross, we think it's dedicated to St. Patrick and St. Columkill. I'm not 100% sure of that. The inscription has worn away. Normally, with any of these high crosses, you're going to get lots of representations of Jesus. And normally, you will see a crucified Jesus right in the centre figure here. Now, I do think Jesus is here. I'd have to double check that. It's either Jesus or King David. But the crucifixion scene is actually below it. So this panel, it kind of represents the first sins. On this side, you have Adam and Eve, who took a bite out of the forbidden fruit. On the next side, you actually have Cain and Abel, and this is Cain here. It's really interesting. You can even see his beard just right here, and he is actually killing his brother in this image, so kind of violent. Just above that, you have Daniel in the lion's den. So Daniel, he was forced by his friend the king, unfortunately, to spend a night in a lion's den. But the angel Gabriel was actually sent by God to stop the lions from eating him. So here you have Daniel just in the centre and two very friendly lions beside him. Okay, so at the top of the cross here, if you just go over to the right, you are going to see a picture of two men, and there's actually a bird above them, and the bird is dropping something. This tells the story of the first monks. Their name was St. Paul and St. Anthony, and they lived in the deserts of Egypt. Now, you have heard me talk a lot about anchorites. Both of these men were anchorites. Whenever they got a chance, they lived in caves in total isolation. And St. Paul was actually fed by a raven. So every day a raven would come with half a loaf of bread for Paul. But when St. Anthony eventually got to visit St. Paul, the raven knew, and it brought a full loaf. And that is what is depicted on this side of the cross. This side of the cross actually shows David, King David, who was known to kill lions with his sling when they attacked his sheep. And it's really interesting. There's so much movement. He's just about to strike the lion. And just to give you a quick look at the round tower of Kells, again it would have been used mainly to call the monks to prayer. It could have had purposes for protection, especially when you think that the Book of Kells was actually here. It would have been a perfect place to store it in times of real danger. It shows the wedding at Cana. Now this was Jesus' first miracle, and it was where he turned water into wine. Now I'm assuming this is the only standing figure, and that is Christ. We also have a kneeled figure just over here. 3 magi, or wise men, and they are being questioned by Herod. Just at the very top there, almost looks like there's a guy with a bow and arrow. Just below that is Jesus being bathed. He is the central figure, and he's being bathed as a child. Now, above that, the very last, it's almost totally destroyed. It looks like a horse-type figure. So at the back of the West High Cross, we're going to continue on with the theme of water and baptism, but this one, it really tells a story, and it does so in order. So here you have Adam and Eve. They're taking a bite from the apple. This is the first sin, and that is why we require baptism in the Christian theology. Move up. Next, this is the flood. So this was where God, he was disappointed in humanity. There was way too much sin, so he decided to start again, and he had Noah build an ark and wipe out humanity with a flood. This represents the ark. Now if you move up, next you have Moses, and he is talking with his brother Aaron here. And then the next panel, that is the Israelites. They are escaping slavery in Egypt, and they're crossing the Red Sea. So all of this, it's what we call a salvation story. It's going from the bad times, the sin, the flood, slavery, and then it's kind of moving into more positive times. So in each of those, even though there's an element of threat, there's an element of salvation as well. It's beautiful.